Great to get a look here across the map to know if there's any early action and we can keep track of that. One thing you'll notice about Fnatic and Dread is that, of course, they did their containment drop. You heard on the desk Glitter talking about how confident they are in that drop, but they got out quick, already looting at High Desert, already at Connector right away. I mean, they dropped containment, but they are claiming a lot more of the map than just the containment area itself.
Yes, but that little button that we just saw here from Spirit come up on your screen, hitting the end, the circle is so very relevant for Fnatic. We heard it from the analyst desk before. It's something I talked about through the entirety of the X Games. This roster rotates early towards those circles, and they're very good at defending and getting placement. So much so, it's a fact you actually gave me over about Fnatic. They placed 4th at X Games with no 10-kill game. The only roster to be able to do that, and that is because they are so placement focus.
Absolutely. Huge shout out to the guys at Liquipedia for Apex. I mean, amazing numbers there. If you do want to catch up on those X Games results and specifically the types of placements and kills that these teams that are here, whether they have the same rosters or not, absolutely check that out. You can get a little bit of intel, of course, on all things, including drop locations and the stats that we saw there. And very interesting. I think those numbers, Dread, tell a lot about Fnatic's playstyle. It's not simply that they didn't have big 10-kill games. I think we saw consistently that they're a placement-heavy team. They are an early rotate team, and we're expecting to see some of that here again.
And I think their interview, we even got a good example of that. When the Fnatic roster was asked, what do they do to be one of those better players? They said a bigger brain than everyone. You can tell that they were trying to approach things with that IQ level here. But for our first skirmish happening pretty centered here, North actually taking a struggle, losing both armors on Tashin and Nook here. Nook being the newest member of the roster. Going to go ahead and Watson up and should get enough breathing room here for them to be able to heal up and see if they counter-initiate.
Absolutely. Of course, Bunker Town, potential for some early engagements. And we've seen a lot of Watsoning up here at River Center and Bunker Town, and we're going to expect to see a lot of that here this weekend, which, Dread, brings us to a great point. Keep in mind here, we only have 3 games to play for each round. Now, as they mentioned on the desk, that was across 12 games of play and 2 days.
Yeah.
Teams here have to have a very specific play style. What we've heard from them, getting a chance to talk with them over the past few days here in Krakow, is that some teams are thinking, you know, we can play it a little bit slow, and I think you and I were talking about, you've only got 3 games. You need to get points on the board.
And I think the mentality for so many of these players is just don't get bottom 10. We'll avoid the bottom 10 here. Oh,
let's go ahead and check in now with Fame here. Kavitsky now flying in. Does get some great shots with that 99. Actually rocking a double 99. Take a look at that in the bottom right corner.
Though, actually gets instant knock there. That's a bad time. And the fact that we already had right there in the middle of the void, his perspective looks like might be a thirst opportunity there. Wraith's going to opt out of it here for now.
Absolutely. Now shots still coming in. No more knockdown left. Yes, indeed. And will be limbed there. So now go back on board with Nook on the north side. Like you said, keep in mind, Nook is a sub on that team. So far, they're going to be happy with that result.
And it's very important to note that there are now 3 teams here skirmishing with this kind of corridor. One in that house, that's where you saw Nook, his box, that golden one sitting on the lower right. Another team making the transition through the golden sands. See the back end of a portal there?
Absolutely. Now, as we see, just popping some wingman shots over here in the other building and just going to wait up. And like we said, this is the type of play we expected to see, especially when we are around here. Like we said, at Bunker Town, teams are going to be watching up, generally, to be honest, avoiding these types of conflicts if they can. 20 squads remaining, of course, there's a whole lot of game to play, and if you've been watching competitive Apex so far, you know that this early game, generally, we could head into several rings later with something like 16, 17, even 18 squads remaining in the match. So these teams are going to be really careful. I think the best way to say it, you heard it in the player interviews, is teams are playing conservatively aggressive. They're going to jump on the opportunities. They want to play those smart, but largely, they do not want to take these big risks, especially when we're talking about game 1 in the tournament.
Yeah, they're searching for the term controlled aggression or calculated on their favor. But we were talking a little bit before about not wanting to get to that bottom 10 before we got that last skirmish. And the biggest thing I want to highlight is that loss aversion beast that we are as human beings. Not focusing on not getting bottom 10, I can't help but feel like is going to hurt the tone. We only have a 3-game sample size. This is a best of 3 to determine if you're that top 10. And I can't help but feel like because kills are worth 1 point apiece, it is in your best interest to test those waters as soon as you can in this series. So by game 3, Bravo, I'm not, pinched in a corner for a lack of a better term to put it.
We talk about Watsoning up. This is a great example of full Watsoning up here. You have seen that complexity has moved into containment. They got the interceptors up as well. They're on the rooftops, and they're starting to lay down those fences. We do hear some shots in the distance as well as we take a look here at the complexity side, and some good long-range options here. We see 2 longbows as well as a scout here, and of course a peacekeeper in play as well. Now some pings coming through.
Lower left perspective here with a very well-kitted longbow. Shot coming out from the scout here up in the upper right. Nothing going to connect. For now, it's just going to be poking and prodding and testing the waters, but you can see Krollo here still struggling as he's already gone down, or excuse me, Fame and a fame as a roster, but Krollo has already been removed. We did see him go down earlier, and these teams, they're just going to be slow and steady, chipping away with those longbows.
And we're going to keep an eye on Krollo, of course. Being so early in the game, lots of opportunity for them to get that respawn. You have to assume that they're going to be looking for that. And given the distance here, when we talk about poking and prodding gameplay thread, you have to assume that even if we get, I would say, even if they get a fast knock, unlikely to think that they are going to fly at this kind of distance across the map south to try to finish there. Even, for example, that 104, as you just saw it come through with that longbow. They're going to look for a little more pokes if the other team gets greedy, but we have to assume, given the play style we've seen in the current meta of the gameplay, that they're not going to fly across.
And one thing that I really like about Complexity, though, when we were talking about their loadout, is the double longbow into the G7 Scout. One of the most important things, if you're going to play this long, slow and steady war of attrition, you need to make sure that your resources are working in your favor. If everyone bears a longbow, then you only have so much heavy ammo to your resources. But being able to split that long-range initiation and poking through both light ammo and heavy ammo is drastically going to help the resource battle for Complexity as this game moves on.
Right, and especially as we talk about the importance right now, given the current meta and the speed of the game and the speed of engagements, so important that these teams are not just team shooting and shooting together, but it is the timing of those knocks. And like you said, having weapons with those different rate of fires, but the same range is what's going to make them able to get that first key knock and give them a little bit of a push.
A little awkward here for a moment there, not able to get rid of the Watson fence for that moment. Ooh, shots though, raining in here on Pistillo. He ends up poking a few back here with the G7 Scout, but only having a 1x HCOG, not going to be too easy as you see those kind of whiff on by. And for a moment there with the crouch. Oh my gosh, so close here. You already see the Watson of this roster taking so much damage that I feel like it's unlikely that they can kind of remain here that much longer. Gambit, in fact, was the ones inflicting the damage from below in caves.
Absolutely. Of course, on this high ground, they're going to want to hold that. They're going to look for a few more shots, maybe get some damage, but looks like maybe even pinging here to move further south. We'll see if they're going to go ahead there, but of course they're comfortable. And like we said, this is the type of gameplay dread that overall we expected to see at this stage. And to be honest, we expected to see potentially through this tournament. Of course, teams are going to need to step it up. But the great thing that we can look forward to as well is the fact that just because we're playing like this in game number 1, when we start to see some points on the board and standings come through for games 2 and 3, it is going to force different play styles. It's even going to force new drops, different aggression, and that's when things are really going to get exciting here. In game 1, every team is going to play this so cautious. They don't want to be the first one to make the mistake.
And I think a great example of exactly what you're talking about, a couple of shots on Bunker, is the Fnatic roster. And I think some people might be saying, why are you talking about Fnatic so much as an entire group here? And the answer is, they are the pillar of consistency of anything here in the Apex Legends scene so far. And because of that, we kind of use them as a constant benchmark.
Yeah.
But if that roster fails to be able to get the points that they want out of those placements, they'll eventually have to be far more aggressive, which again is not necessarily within their natural instincts.
And Chipsy here with eyes on the portal exit, trying to watch that. You see they're spreading off a little bit. They have right now a pretty good position here, just given the elevation that top bunker will provide them. And it looks like we did see Crank kind of scouted out. He does have the purple 2 blues as well for them, so sitting pretty in terms of armor at this stage. We did see a few teams earlier that were rocking double white still, so we're going to keep an eye on it if they're going to have trouble getting out of their position, and also probably going to have to be a little bit selective with their rotations. When you do see a team running something like a double white, triple white armor, you have to expect that those teams are going to look to rotate early, right? Get into those positions, because there's no way you're pushing out a ring and getting into those areas when you're going to be at a huge armor disadvantage.
It's so interesting, too, because that comes off at the trade-off of if you're trying to make those rotations early to be able to deal with that, you're going to have less probability of finding better armor than you already had. Maybe go for those outer rotations, but then you ask yourself, are you running into somebody's main drop? The Luminosity on the backside of the bunker, though, I think is a grand position for them, considering our circle. It's essentially built a safety dome, a little bubble, if you will, which I think is apt here in Poland, considering our venue. But now we're taking a glance here over BOS Esports. Jay Savage here with the wingman, kind of chipping away, having the high ground advantage over whoever seems to be attempting to ascend post caves.
And we do also see BDS not really in the best position right now. You see they have moved out of cage here, but they are on a pretty clear ring edge and not where you want to be at this point. Engaging here, wingman shots do go down. It looks like they're going to push this advantage as well.
Yeah, they're trying to get all the way up to confirm one of these knocks after landing 1 to 2 wingmen. Jay Savage questioning if he wants to maybe go a little bit farther here. Looks like the answer is just going to be peek and remain a little bit patient. It's very important to highlight that we are now nearing round 3, and we already sit in a situation where no team has been removed yet. Every squad still alive here at the Apex Preseason Invitational.
And I think that's what anyone who did catch a lot of the X Games and gameplay even prior is expecting to see. Like we said, also Game 1 gameplay going to be pretty specific in terms of no points on the board and really no teams needing to have a risk force. You have to think also BDS is going to keep this high ground very difficult. You and I were talking about it just yesterday, Dredd. Coming across destroyed bridges up this exact way, coming to the west.
Yes.
Up that is a large task, to say the absolute least. Those shots coming in here from the side of Wyvern as we're on board with Parka now.
Yeah, Wyvern repping the flat line, a weapon that I think we're going to see quite a bit of throughout the entirety of this weekend, but it's low when looking at the ammunition front, not so much in the mag, but the 43 on the side. Just looking to get a couple deterrent shots there.
Yep.
But the high ground still sitting in their favor. And Wyvern's a roster, we already heard it on the analyst test. This is one that I'm really looking forward to watch. All of the South Korean teams, I think their performance levels here is going to be very telling because they have really made a name for themselves. The question is, now that we're all on land, all on the same ping, same server, can they clutch it out with a way that some of us maybe expect?
Yep, deciding to actually move back. They were moving back from Hillside Outpost up back to farm, so must have gotten a call out, a reason to circle back away from the ring, but now on board with Gambit, who's found themselves in an engagement as well here.
They're in a very bad position. Keep in mind, they've got 14-second timer to make it through this choke, and it's not looking like it's easy.
Oh, you and I have talked a lot about this choke. This is one of the few points that
great thermite.
Few points here, the way you have to get out of a triple choke, and they are in between a rock and a hard place. They'll need to push up here. Some good shots, though, on the side, and they will get that first knock here as they continue to push.
Sunset, though, sitting pretty low. Actually, both of them losing the armor, but it looks like they got the knocks fast enough. Yes, Gambit securing the entirety of the kills there. And that is going to be enough to not only remove our very first squad here in our game, but more importantly, really show that at least positioning and now resource-wise, this is going to be a great start for Gambit.
Yeah, that's going to be Estral Esports, who's our first there as they go down there. That's our first team full wiped here in our match number 1. That's going to be Eldegor, Pastillo, and Den Pride, who will be our first eliminated from the event.
G2, though, find themselves, it seems like a couple of tangos. Questioning if they're below. The thermite grenade thrown between those cracks. Right now, distributing a couple of warning shots to whoever may be out in the distance, finds a connect with one. It doesn't look like there's too much armor in there. Also, focus fire coming out from the team. Does not seem like whoever's ever on the receiving end of these shots is with us much longer here, Bravo.
I don't think so. There's no way they're getting out of this as long as we do see the guys on G2 to continue to hit their shots. Also looking for that elimination on that player as well. This is going to be a tricky way to navigate out of here. And unless I think there's a miracle coming, they're not going to be able to do it. Let's see this team shot here from G2.
They're being rather slow here with questioning if they want to push. Questioning is the Arc Star the choice. Is it worth going out there to risk their positioning for some of the resources? And to be honest, how desperate their positioning makes it questionable.
Looks like 0-0 has found himself someone downstairs. Peacekeeper in hand tries to get that. It's also choked, so that's going to hit real hard when it does. And he has some help from Red as well.
Red taking a very bad trade, but ends up committing all the way down below. And look at G2 actually getting punished here in the 1 vs 3 push, trying to get the split pressure from 2 different angles, but it may have been biting off more than they can chew.
Yeah, you got to wonder, maybe a lack of coordination there to lose that. 1v3 on another player is knocked as well. That's coming in from Selly. As you see that come in, and we actually saw Joey Black out there from Chaos hit that knock on 0-0 with that longbow. So what we thought was a pretty good position here for G2, now is Red with no shield.
I think we have the answer as to why they didn't want to push out. Turns out everybody is looking at G2 pinched now in what feels like the center of the map. 40 seconds remain before they have to get themselves out of here. And with so many around them, I can't but feel like that is a optimistic perspective if they are going to aim for that.
Oh no, look downstairs here. That's going to be Joey Blackout. And yes, indeed, I believe we are still going to see Rhett get that knock, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, indeed, Rhett does that. He becomes the kill leader with 3 kills, is getting the revive as well. So G2 finds themselves getting out of jail.
And think about if that kill happens any later. The amount of time it's going to take them to be able to heal up and restore is so long that they would have died to that circle. So great play coming out from G2. Now, Wyvern on the back end, though. Selly showing why he is one of the favorites of this tournament.
Oh boy, and look at that. The longbow, the Peacekeeper does come in there to get the knock with 55, and that's going to be a limb as well. We talk about Selly as just how talented he is mechanically. Certainly, conversations we've had with players, a lot of people put him in the top 5 of the most mechanically talented players here at this event.
Yeah, I find it very, very interesting as a guy with a MOBA background to watch how these Korean teams are willing to perform because they are very, very good in that avenue. But complexity here with the high ground advantage over the center of the map. We saw them earlier, but they are now struggling. Already down to 1 member, Reptar out. Mirko has managed to get out without the armor, but gave his Mont, losing his Q. Fights back! The 301 right into the face and gets the knock on the Spirit.
Also grabs the beacon there. You see he's going to fly across. Great use of that Q to fly right in and land those 301 shots. I don't know if he missed a bullet there as he has that real tight and is able to get that as well. Now, we also see some action here for Fnatic NA in the kill feed. We'll keep an eye on that as well as Muffins takes a double knock of his own.
Well done by Muffins, and it's very important to note there from Gabe Isman that he actually backtracked on the back end of that queue to make sure he got that skirmish, because if he kept walking, he was essentially signing his own death note.
Yep.
Very heads-up play coming out from them, and now here at Love Gaming down below.
Let's start to talk about this final ring, Dread, where we are. We're right outside of Bunker here, really River Center, and I will say, based on this ring location, I think it's safe to say that this game has been at a much faster pace than almost every game we saw at X Games.
Yeah, it is definitely at a faster pace here. And with the 13 people that we have, or 13 squads, if you will, remaining, this is going to get very tense as we break that 50-second threshold. Also, I want to keep in mind, whoever ended up winning that battle on the backside of Bunker that we tuned in the mid-game, if they've somehow managed to control Luminosity the entirety of this, they're in a pretty good position to dictate some of the decisions made on the back half of this circle.
Here's Crank up top. He gets a ton of damage taken in, though, so has to queue out. And now it looks like they also have Bunker Watsoned up, and there's a small fortress that they have here at Bunker.
And again, this is because of the victory that Luminosity got on the back end with that circle. I was talking, they built a dominion of safety, and they used it great.
Look at Wyvern, some great shots here coming out of Carampe. Now taking a look across. They're in an okay position here, but they're going to need to relocate pretty soon. We talk about that high ground battle right across the river and how generally, if you look across there, the team at the Bunker is going to have the ability to just circle back if they need to. So expect Luminosity to continue holding that ground down at Bunker.
I love the team shot focus attempt here from Wyvern as well. Throwing a few more out there at the distance house. Now we tune back in with Fnatic finding themselves a couple of tangos here. Nice spray coming out. If he doesn't get that knock, he's already going to go down. The Wraith actually iframed, risked his own positioning and lost that shield.
Has to pop a bat. You saw all that damage and that team shot that's coming in from Luminosity over at Bunker. And now with that ring closing in, they're going to have to move. You see Spirit flying in as well. Going to heal up. Look at him still running white armor.
Great
Going to have to be careful. And look at the bottom mid. This is the best view we've had of maybe a 10 squads left fight as everyone is now converging on Bunker Town.
But the positioning advantage is now sitting in favor of them. The fact that they control this upper hand, they have the Watson down. No grenades are going to be a major threat for them. They can defend, they can hold, as long as they don't risk their positioning or peek out too long.
They need to be, I mean, Athame has claimed a single generator here that they're all hiding behind. They do need to be careful indeed. Of course, with that Watson ult up, they don't have to worry about grenades popping in. Now back on board with Spirit, who's continually having to heal. As look at those shots coming in from bottom Bunker. They have the high ground, but they're not going to be able to hold this for too long. Look how open they are.
But it's important to note that if Fnatic pushes towards the circle, they're going to be pinched here from Athame. But look at this on the other side. Athame has been pressured so heavily by Luminosity that it's not even going to matter. Fnatic is in a very, very tough moment here. They have some of the hardest decisions to make out of this final circle, but Luminosity and the Bunker boys need to find a way out.
And talk about a team that looks a little bit better shield and health-wise. That's going to be Wyvern. Look at them right here. They've got the nice angle. This is where you want to be. They've got a rooftop with full cover, and this piping here also helps them from that low ground.
Yeah, and the best thing about this final circle is there's not going to be too many opportunities for a final zipline. Some of the trees will enable that, and we'll see if anybody tries to take advantage of that. But for now, Wyvern really feel like they control this round 6 circle. Nobody can really make their way in here. And look at Fnatic Shiny just holding on to a miracle here, the last member alive on his squad.
Let's keep in mind, of course, playing for both placings and points. But let's go back to Wyvern here. As you see, they're starting to Watson up the roof. They've also got digital threats. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Carampe has a digital threat on his wingman and on his Peacekeeper, which is also choked. So they are in a great position here for the late game.
Ring closing, and this is when things are going to really start to get heavy here. Wyvern has the positional advantage here, but they need to make sure they get the shots out. They force themselves one iframe, top right there. You see the wingman dink it away. That's an easy knock. 5 squads now remain. Wyvern still maintaining control here over our central circle. Bring out the Peacekeeper, and he's going to establish balance there and easily get another knock. Now 4 here as Wyvern seem like they are just unstoppable, Bravo.
They really are, and it's great to see them here. They were one of the teams we talked about in the desk, one of the teams we've been talking about this week. And you got to be careful. Every time you back into that ring, you're getting a 25% tick here. So they cannot be too careful, as they have to make sure that their edges, that their backs are not too close to the edge of that ring. 4 squads left here, and look at the size of this. You have to think that right across this edge is going to be a battle at any moment.
We can assume that Fnatic ended up getting picked off at some point there. Look at Crank. My goodness. Almost no HP there. The med kit confirms. We'll end up going for a res opportunity. 16 on that, but I'm not sure that Wyvern is going to be merciful here once this finishes.
Absolutely not. It's a dangerous place to be, and you got to think that there's going to be some action bottom of that shack as well. Maybe at Bunker Town. We don't have an eye on exactly where all 4 squads are just left. We'll continue taking a look.
We need to start considering who is going to have a Wraith alive over this next circle and who is going to have their ultimate available, because if they have the portal, that is a massive Hail Mary that is almost necessary there for Crank and Luminosity, as they are still being chipped at
and that's
by
a
Wyvern.
good chip. Take a look at this.
Yeah, and they also keep in mind that Wyvern probably hasn't been forced to use the Wraith portal because they've had positioning advantage, which means it's likely a resource for the final circle.
And LG is still trying to chip away in this 2v3, and some great shots coming out of the ult there for Crank. Look at his shields, though. Not a whole lot to play with, and you have to think, if Wyvern starts to hit a team shot, which is what they're about to push in and try to do, it's going to get dangerous here. And you talked about this. This is the portal, Dread, that you're talking about, that you expect to see a lot of this in the late game.
And it's very important to trace it as long as you possibly can, because it buys time. As you can see there, for every second he self-traces, but Kirampe struggling on the back end of that.
I think he got dinged and also backed into the ring at the exact same time.
Yeah, talk about unlucky, but when you walk the line that closely, it could come back to bite you. Now can we see Parka provide enough breathing room to get that res, or is the circle now closing too problematic?
And let's go ahead and take a look now. JP2 and Crank, no shields for either of them. They got to fight in. Let's see if Crank can stay alive. It looks like he's trying to fight through. He will go down. That's going to be it. And now back over to Wyvern. 2 squads remaining here in the game.
Wyvern have the upper hand. They have the portal timer. You can see them taking it, not taking any of the damage. They have one person left finally into the circle. They're trying to get the kill. Selly goes down. Parka goes down. No, they went out of the circle. Oh my goodness. They ended up losing HSL. Clutch it out because of the side.